A friend for life and a good guy. That's how former U.S. basketball star Dennis Rodman has described North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. Rodman has made 4 trips to the communist state in the past year, but they come at a tense time with the United States urging North Korea to release Kenneth Bae, a U.S. citizen serving 15 years of hard labor for alleged hostile acts against the country. And joining me right now is VOA's Sonny Young from Sunny Side of Sport. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Imran.
What's going on? I mean, I can understand Rodman thinks that this gentleman, the leader, is a good guy. But what's the bottom line here? I mean, is he trying to create some kind of a controversy?
Well, as you mentioned, he's made 4 trips to North Korea, but this 4th and last trip may have been his most controversial, Imran. He caught a lot of negative publicity, especially for some remarks he made about Kenneth Bae. In the aftermath of his trip, he has issued an apology. He said he was under tremendous stress. Also links to alcohol. He was slurring his words during a very well-publicized interview. And yeah, it was not good in terms of Rodman's trip.
But I understand about the controversy with regards to his statement. But what is he actually doing in these trips?
He likes to think of himself as some type of basketball ambassador. He does have links with the North Korean leader in that, like President Obama, the Kim Jong Un is a huge basketball fan. When he was a teenager, he followed the Chicago Bulls. Rodman played on the Bulls with Michael Jordan. They won NBA championships together. And there's a fascination, I think, between Rodman and the North Korean leader.
Okay, so on one side he says that this is basketball diplomacy, but then he makes these kind of statements with regards to Kenneth Bae. Do you think the critics would understand that this is diplomacy in action?
I think in the wake of this trip, Imran, Rodman caught a lot of heat in that he's not an ambassador and that he really had no clue about some of the political implications of his trip. He has pretty much been quiet since the trip. I think he realized that the negative flack he was receiving was not good.
Okay, so who's paying for all these trips?
Good question. The NBA commissioner, David Stern, thought that maybe the trip was being privately funded. It's not clear whether the North Korean government is involved. I don't know. It's hard to say who's paying for those trips.
Do you think that these kind of trips would have a negative effect on the negotiations or whatever backdoor deals the U.S. is trying to make with North Korea?
I think it has a real negative impact. For instance, after the trip, the White House, the State Department, the NBA, which used to employ Dennis Rodman, they all distanced themselves from him and basically came out with statements that they were opposed to him socializing. There was some basketball played on the trip, but the political repercussions have had the biggest impact.
Especially the kind of comments that are coming out of this trip. But you know, when I think about basketball diplomacy, I think about Harlem Globetrotters. You know, you would set up a team of stars, and then you would take it to different countries and say, "Hey, let's talk." I don't see this happening. Do you see that too?
I agree. You mentioned the Globetrotters, the Dream Team back in '92 at the Olympics. Yeah. They were basketball ambassadors. They helped develop the sport in countries where previously it wasn't played very much. I don't see that happening in North Korea. I think the audience for these exhibition games, it's a very select audience, and yeah, I don't think it's the same at all.
Okay, we'll just keep a lookout for what's coming up with that. If there are more trips, we'll see what happens.
Thanks, Imran.
Thank you so much for joining us. VOA Sonny Young from Sunny Side of Sports.
Thank you.